too. It's bad.
It is bad.
Gentlemen, I want to talk to you about a man named Charles Osborne. Charles Osborne lived in Ohio. Oh, I'm sorry, Iowa, not Ohio. Those
You
are
wanna
two
start
different
Hey,
off
did you
with-
tweet out the link yet? Did you tweet out the
Gentlemen,
link
I
so
want to
people can
talk to you
join
about-
us?
Gentlemen, I want to talk to you about a man named Charles Osborne.
You didn't answer our question yet.
Iowa. Yeah, I didn't tweet anything out. No, it's in IRC. Piss off.
But you tweeted out. I thought you wanted to get people to watch us live.
Not really. That seems like such
Okay.
a bad idea.
It
really
does.
does.
But... Okay, go.
Gentlemen, I want to talk to you about a man named Charles Osborne. Charles Osborne lived in Iowa. And in 1922, he got a case of the hiccups. Charles Osborne from Iowa started hiccuping in 1922 and continued hiccuping until 1990. That's right. Charles Osborne hiccuped for 68 years and continues to hold the world record for the longest hiccup. Welcome to episode 68.
Stop it.
Johnson, and this is PH Bagley.
Oh my goodness. What are you doing to us?
You know, I try to mix it up every now and then. There is one that I could do, and I think I got the green light to do it. I was holding off because I used a year the last time. I kind of used a year this time, but it was like a number of years. But in 1968, in a small town called Liverpool, Ohio,
Are you doing
a
two of them this
beautiful
time?
young woman was born, who I would go on to marry much later in life. Just to let you guys know that. So there. Welcome to
That
was
episode
fun.
68. What?
That lady's name.
Beck. Duh.
Mrs. Shokum.
Mrs. Shook. Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going
Good,
well.
what's going on?
Oh, long day. I mean, yeah, my every other Thursday podcast schedule is hectic, man. I got. Why don't you join us on Lair Chat Live anymore, Thomas? Oh yeah, that's right. It's your nap time.
I was at a meetup actually.
What?
Yeah.
You ventured outside the house?
He's cheating on us too.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really gross. And I won't be going back.
Uh-oh.
I saw you say that in Slack, and I was wondering what you meant, but I figured I'd save it for this.
Well, it's sort of self-explanatory. So I went to they were calling it a Bitcoin meetup group. I was looking for information about blockchain tech and stuff like that because the last week has been entirely enveloped in learning about and implementing.
So, something our listeners might not understand, although we get together once a week and do this podcast, we are in communication all week long through Slack, IRC. We just talk to each other. We're friends. We're developers. You know, we're constantly talking to each other. I have never seen Thomas so completely consumed with a topic as he's been this last week. It's like every day the guy is getting more and more excited, tweeting out more and more links and more information. This next piece of what he's about to tell you, you guys will not have an appreciation to how much Thomas has totally immersed himself into this topic. Thomas, take it away.
So I sort of got the vibe from it that it was going to be an investors oriented meetup. If you don't know much about the blockchain, you're just not going to understand this part because we're not going to spend the entire podcast talking about it. But Ethereum functions in a way where it's both a virtual stock market in many ways, as well as a platform for application development and financing. And the blockchain in general is sort of moving that direction where anyone can launch a coin and do a thing with it. This turned out to be just a really disgusting series of sales pitches that made me feel like I was I was getting a condo somewhere, or
Really?
So you were looking for information, hoping to like pick
I
brains and
was
learn more.
I was looking for people who had a fundamental understanding of cryptocurrency, and what I got was people who had a really good understanding of stock markets, exchanges, you know, tucked in polo shirts, telling me, "Hey, this is our new cryptocurrency. It's totally not an MLM," and then describing what a MLM is as what their currency was.
I love that. If you have to say we're not an MLM, you're an MLM.
Well, the whole meetup started with the woman running it saying, "Oh, by the way, is anyone here a member of the press or here in a function as a worker for the federal government? Raise your hand." And that was the first thing. And I just sort of went, "Oh, shit."
That's odd.
Yeah, that's. She said, "Well, we're just checking to make sure who's with us. We're not giving any investment advice. Here are 3 people who are going to sell you their new investments." Like, and then it slowly at some point got towards, "Oh, this person is not selling me their investments. This person's literally selling me her referral code to a site that she is quote unquote employed by, and this is a room." That's where it got gross. Was that this was a room of people who did not know how to create a Bitcoin wallet. They had $10,000 that they had saved up and were looking for a place to invest it, and you could tell the difference between the people who were there to invest their savings and the people who were there to steal. It was a very stark contrast, and
So real quick for the listeners to catch up, in case you don't know what MLM stands for, it stands for multi-level marketing. It's a lot of these how you refer to a lot of these pyramid schemes. Yeah, but there are legitimate multi-level marketing solutions out there, but most of them are like pyramid schemes. Yes.
Yeah.
So and when he says MLM, that's what he's referring to.
So, like, the first step in an MLM is referral. If you have a referral code.
John, I think they caught up to him.
What?
Did his internet just cut out?
It must have, because I see you fine. And he just froze. Okay. No, there he is. He's good.
So the first step in the MLM is the referral code. And, so I make money by you joining our system. But that's not always a clear giveaway. What was a clear giveaway for me was the levels of ownership. No, it's the levels of ownership. So the second group the second 2 guys that came up started talking about, at the $200 investment level, you're in the silver group, which means that you can receive the luxury bonus, the time to invest bonus, the ETA bonus, the market value share split bonus. I mean, it was just throwing buzzwords out there and calling them bonuses, and it was totally made up. And I'm like, the guy must have listed 20 different levels of bonuses, and then like.
And if you make enough in the bonuses, you get to join us at our exclusive vacation spot.
Right. But here's the thing: is like. There was, by this point, because I stayed longer than a lot of people, there were probably 6 people that left before I did, because I didn't stay for the whole meetup.
How many people do you think were there?
Over 20.
Wow.
There appeared to be, a lot of people. I mean, this was clearly, they do this weekly. This is a weekly meetup. And there was not discussion about the nature of cryptocurrency or the current state of the market. This was just investment opportunities. And the people there were all nodding their head. And I swear to God, one of the ladies pulled up a SpongeBob meme about how sharing is caring. As a reference to how the referral program worked. And a good 15 people busted out laughing.
That is an awesome use for Meetup.com. I never thought about starting an MLM opportunity and using Meetup to recruit new people into it.
And that's exactly what they did.
Eric, I quit.
they said, "You're interested in cryptocurrency, right? Buy our cryptocurrency." And there was actually a woman there who was acting like a cheerleader. She seemed to be affiliated with the people who were presenting, and so she would goad them on with these questions like, "What's another avenue for revenue with this system?" Very loudly speaking out, and it was gross, because it was a room full of people getting fleeced, and if you didn't leave before the end of the meeting, you didn't realize you were getting fleeced. And there were a couple guys who were there who, as soon as we got in there, I looked around the room and said, "Oh yeah, that guy, we know what we're doing. We're the techies here." And they split quick. I mean, they were there for 15 minutes. But I really wanted to see what direction it was going, and see if there were people I could meet, and if they were starting a company and I wanted to train people, or were looking for specific things in a developer. But once I realized that every single person there was happily nodding their heads as somebody was picking their pocket, I was just like, this is fucked. I cannot sit here and watch this. And I was clearly outnumbered too. If I had stood up and said, "You understand that these people are actively stealing your money," they would have beat the crap out of me. There were people there who knew that they were stealing and were selling it as if they were giving. And
wow. So I just want to make sure I'm processing everything correctly. So the whole MLM thing is them encouraging people to buy their cryptocurrency as opposed to like a Bitcoin or something. You purchase theirs, and by referring other people to purchase theirs, you get money?
It's not a straight up MLM. The first one that was being presented was actually an okay idea. It was essentially a mutual fund for the coin market, where you invested in, and then they cross-invested with other tokens and then paid out dividends. But
so it sounds like it was companies that were they're trying to get into the blockchain technology market. Like, there's plenty of others that are doing it. They're trying to get into it, and then they're trying to build a market by doing these levels, possibly.
Yeah, so she was talking about the one that she was employed by, which was started last December, and she was saying it's a really good thing is they have brick and mortar, and we all know brick and mortar is important. A brick and mortar building that represents these people is really important. And she showed us a picture of their brick and mortar building in Panama. Like, she says, "Yeah, this is where the company works out of. Everyone there speaks Portuguese, so there's a little translation stuff here and there." And I'm like, not a single person works out of that building. That is an address. You just pointed at a map. You didn't do anything. Like, you just said you can trust it because they have a brick and mortar building, and then said they don't have a brick and mortar building. Look, this is the kind of like. And it was that's the thing that bothered me the most, is that it was such a low level fleecing. It's like, if you had any sense whatsoever, you knew that it was just complete bullshit. But it was very interested people.
That bad experience, I get that. You slipped a lot of doom and gloom at the very beginning of the show. I'm a little disappointed in that. But I do want to get into some of the stuff you've been looking into throughout the week, because you've been hyping this up like big time. Like, you kind of deep dove in a lot of the ether and topics that we talked about last week. Can you?
Well, the rest of it is
elaborate on any of that.
Yeah, the rest of it is sunshine and lollipops. The position that Bitcoin is in right now is really fascinating, because there was a lot of discussion early in Bitcoin's life where it was like gold. It was like trading gold, and the value fluctuates based off who trades it. Well, now that's more true than ever. Now Bitcoin is the gold standard for every other cryptocurrency. Mm-hmm. So when you look up the value of your cryptocurrency, you don't get USD, you don't get the euro, you get the value of this currency in Bitcoin payout. And it's in a very, very stable position as the authoritative income outcome process the crypto however you want to with all the tokens, all the coins, but you put in Bitcoin and you get out Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And which I think is really interesting, and the Bitcoin community seems to be pleased with this outcome. That's saying that we are gold, and it sort of relates to what we talked about last week with Ethereum Classic, where the Bitcoin people said you're not allowed to fork, and they did it anyways, and the Bitcoin people are now running Ethereum Classic.
So to me, Bitcoin is it is currency. I mean, there's plenty of places accepting Bitcoin as payment for goods and services. A lot of these other coins aren't necessarily currency per se. It's you're buying into their services.
That's
you're buying
tokens
to get into their service. Yeah, you're buying tokens to get into their services, right?
Or to fund their intention, and that gets into a story about open source monetization, where you can actually give a token to open source projects and say, hey, here's my 10 cents and you invest it how you want to, and it'll pay out based off of it. There's a lot. It's a deep can of worms. And I keep hitting this computer science blockade. Every article I'll read will have a reference that I don't understand, so I click the link and it's just somebody's photo of a blackboard with an equation written on it, and I just go, well, fuck. I'm not getting anywhere from here. Time to go back. Just assume I don't understand this term now. So, but the way that Ethereum has been built is a really stunning turn to the market. Ethereum, if you don't know, is a blockchain that is capable of executing code in the blockchain.
Which, by the way, this entire topic interrupted my sleep all night last night. I was constantly thinking about this, and it was driving me batty and exciting me at the same time. There's just so much you can do with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, imagine that if you can program a blockchain, then you can program a blockchain in a blockchain, which is what the token system is. The token system is blockchain tracking for an arbitrary thing. They've also sort of changed the nature of mining. So mining for Ethereum is intentionally difficult at a set difficulty. Part of the mining process is processing transactions that have been executed and earning money for doing work that was requested by other users. So there's this thing in the Bitcoin world where you had to pay money to transfer money because everyone had to write down your transaction to the global ledger and publish it to each other, and there's expenses involved in that. Well, Ethereum has replaced that with a system called gas. And so gas is a calculation of cyclomatic complexity on something, on your program. So since your transaction is a simple from me to you, it's 2 hashes and half a K of bandwidth. So that equals X gas. The value of gas goes up and down by the second. So if you want to make sure your transaction gets processed quickly, you have to pay a transaction fee that matches what the gas price is for that transaction at that time. Crazy stuff.
But their complexity in calculating the hash isn't as bad as Bitcoin is right now, right?
It's kind of. So the algorithm is designed not to be solvable by certain hardware that was made just for Bitcoin, ASIC compliant algorithms. So ASIC processors have no advantage on it. And then the algorithm, the rate at which successes occur is controlled by the Ethernet community or the Ethercoin community. So it's as difficult as they want it to be.
Right, but
and then
so with Bitcoin, they were targeting every 10 or 15 minutes to have something mined, and as computing power increased, and that time started shifting below that 10 minutes, the complexity increased.
Right. And in this case, the complexity is dealt with in blocks, and those blocks are good for a few days while they're mined, and that includes the data for all the transactions that are occurring on the blockchain as well. So if you're doing mining, you're actually working the blockchain for people, and you get paid out for it as well. But that's sort of going to end in a year or two, because right now the algorithm is a proof of work algorithm. So it just says, did you devote enough computer time that we're going to pay you out for? And you say, I can prove that I worked, 5,000 watt hours. Here's the proof. And then they pay you out for that proof. The next step is a proof of investment, which is a whole different coin type. And they're going to be switching to that in a couple of years.
So at this point, I think we need to go back and re-record the intro. Welcome to Cryptocurrency Ugly.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm of the personality that gets obsessed with things, and I'm totally obsessed because I see what's happening. I look at reports in the news where they say automation is going to replace people, and they say, yeah, automation is going to replace accountants. Automation is going to replace real estate agents. I firmly believe that automation is going to replace real estate agents within 5 years. Looking at this technology, I didn't understand how automation could replace a real estate agent. Now I do. It's super easy. It'll take about 5 years. And seeing something like
buy off. I mean, not completely replaced, because you got to get buy off on the public, and the public's not at a place of understanding any of this currently. The general public, I should say.
Right, but then you look at the power that the venture capitals have to throw money into something like this. I mean, if you could propose and prove your ability to create the Uber of the real estate market, Uber took off in 1 year. It took 1 year for them to just go from zero to what they are.
But what they're offering makes sense when you compare it to a taxi.
Right, and what I'm offering with the real estate makes sense when you're looking at a 10% fee that your real estate agent is taking. You're gonna make $100,000 by using our system. Okay, 6%. Still, it's in a market that's growing and growing, and you're looking at the location where it's growing the most and the most expensive, like Silicon Valley. People who are going to be on that border, it's gonna blow up. When one person writes the white paper and gets their VC friends to get in on it, you'll see the first automation of housing sales, and that's going to just take off from there out of Silicon Valley. And my point is more that I didn't understand how you could automate something that only a person can do. Now I do. This system will 100% enable the automation of tasks that you didn't think could be automated.
So interesting. Let's talk about this more off air.
Well, no, I'm curious, John, from your perspective. I mean, you said you've been thinking about it a lot as well, as especially around implementations. I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
It was more just I didn't have any specific thoughts. It was just more like all night my head running. Like every time I woke up, it was all about Ethereum and the blockchain and what can we do. And I haven't come up with anything concrete yet, but my head is definitely in that space of just the wow. Like there's something here. I just got to find it.
I'm probably about 60 hours into researching all of this, and unfortunately, like my first idea is to try and test the stability of the Ethereum blockchain by creating the most litigiously upsetting system. It's like, could I get the short version is, could I get Nintendo to sue Ethereum? So I don't know how many enemies that'll make.
Let's bleep that out, and we'll say, I don't know, something else.
Sega.
So yeah,
right.
that was my take on it. There's something there. I just haven't put my finger on it yet. I'm obsessed with it in the same way, wanting to find something to do with it.
I've been telling people it's like seeing the internet turned on in the 70s. If you were friends with somebody who was writing TCP/IP protocols in the 70s and said, "Look at this, imagine what it can do," you couldn't imagine what it can do, but you can start to imagine what it can do. And the blockchain technology that's out there right now, I cannot imagine what it's going to be capable of, but it is the next thing. It's the next great thing for
I keep watching
absolute clear.
I keep watching like just tons of videos, and they're just random videos, but people saying like writing the next protocol like TCP/IP on the blockchain. Like the blockchain technology is supposedly changing everything, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around how I can make benefit of that outside of just investing money into it, because that's, I mean, anyone can do that.
I think that's the worst way to go. I think investing is the worst way to make money from the blockchain.
It's the most accessible at this point.
Oh yeah. I mean, most of the blockchain apps that have been developed are all for managing investments in the blockchain. So there's a lot of really great tools out there to do this, but that's the value of the cryptocurrencies isn't going to be established by people investing in it. It's going to be established in people utilizing it.
I go back to the whole Bitcoin thing. When I first started looking into Bitcoin, probably a decade ago at this point, a single Bitcoin was $9. I remember looking at that, I'm like, this makes no sense. And I didn't take the time to learn about Bitcoin then. If I bought, obviously, at $9 and now it's worth $2,500, $2,600, I mean, it's ridiculous. So it's all about learning the technology, learning what it is, wrapping your head around it, and just going with it. Instead of just, it's too much to work on now, I'm gonna not worry about it.
Yeah.
It's not just monetary, it's everything. It's having the knowledge and knowing what I'm talking about.
Well,
which obviously right now I don't.
But this knowledge requires an enormous investment. Like I said, I've probably done 60 hours in the last week of research. And that's because right now I'm on vacation and my kids are out of town. I could not have gotten to the point that I'm at now with my level of understanding, working a job and raising children. It requires such an amazing amount of focus to just start understanding the stuff. But it is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you do this week, John?
What did I do this week? I lost my entire personal blog.
What?
Oh, yes.
You know, if it was on the blockchain, that wouldn't happen.
Kids,
yeah,
no need to run your website on physical hardware anymore. Go ahead, John.
And back up your stuff. No, it's one of those things. I had a physical server co-located somewhere. I've had it. I mean, I bought it probably 10, 15 years ago. I don't even know when I bought this thing. Co-located it at a company I used to work for. I was paying dirt cheap rates at that time. A few years later, they said, you know what, you've done enough for us, because I used to work there. They gave me the space for free. So I just had a server running there and just didn't care. It's been up for 15 years, no issues. And then there were issues. So I guess
those little platters don't spin forever.
Well, the power supply went out on the server itself, as well as something happening with the hard drive. And luckily, I got a really good friend in Florida, persistent as all get out, and he got the hard drive up and running long enough, at least for me to get the data off of it. So I'll have it up and running here again soon.
Oh, thank God. JohnCongdon.com will be back online.
It's important. Cal Evans just today was tweeting out how important it is to blog about your issues. And that's all I did back in the day, was blog about
that's
issues.
What media is for.
As I say, when's the last time you posted something, John? Yeah.
2000. I have no clue. 2013.
Hey, John, did you realize our company has a blog? Yeah. When's the last time you posted there, John?
Yesterday.
Full of shit.
Note to self: write article, fudge date in database.
So Thomas, you're on vacation, huh? No coding at all. Just this Bitcoin waste of time you're doing.
Well, the
Waste
idea
of
was
time.
to accomplish things around the house and do some self improvement. But then one of my favorite events of the year, Summer Games Done Quick, is actually happening this week, and my
What's that? What?
Coincidence?
Summer game,
I think
what?
video
What?
games
You don't know what
running
this is?
competition.
For charity.
Yeah, for Médecins Sans Frontières.
What do? You buy them? You watch them? What happens?
You watch them.
You watch people do it.
You watch people break video
It's like,
games.
what? Break video games? What are you talking about? I'm very confused. Are they playing a game or not?
They're breaking a video game. They're playing it as fast as can be done. So
This makes no sense to me. This is a thing? Or are you guys messing with me?
yeah, no, that's the thing. How long do you think it takes the best player in the world to beat Super Mario, the original Super Mario?
No idea.
I think at
12
this point
minutes.
it's about 3.5 minutes.
Wait. Can we assume it's 68 seconds?
No.
Sure, why not?
68 seconds? What?
See, I took with my long-winded speech, I took all the attention off Eric, so he's just been sitting there chugging his
Trying
drink.
to find something with 68.
Trying to stay awake. Hey, next week 69, baby. Woo!
I don't know what we'll come up with for that one.
Wow. Hey, can we get a sponsor? Thomas, work on a sponsor for us. You might know some people.
Diego Dev.
Hey, no, I was thinking the company you work for.
Oh, they don't sponsor things. They don't go along with anything that I want.
Except keeping you when you're wanted elsewhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, like I wanted them to get involved in the net neutrality day of protest, and it got run up to the top, and then the top said, "No, thanks, we're good."
Because they looked at their daily income and was like, do we really want to give up X revenue?
Well, that and because they're investors, so at their core, their interest is in the best way of monetizing the internet, and they don't want to write out any options.
So I have a question for you guys.
I assume I wouldn't say that is their true motivations, but
Yeah, because you really don't know. At the end of the day, you don't know.
yeah, I'm not rich yet.
Just in case
This
they listen to
new
this.
pyramid scheme I've got was going to make me a ton, though.
So how many shares did you buy when you are you gold level or silver level?
What's $1.50 get you? Because that's currently what I'm worth.
Zinc? I don't know. I
Helium.
have no clue.
Bring your own container. Make sure it's airtight.
So I have a question for you guys. There's been a couple topics that I've been kind of obsessed with lately, watching some videos online.
Bitcoin.
God, please don't be Bitcoin.
There's that. Okay, so there's 3. I have 2 others that I want to talk about. Have you guys looked into trunk-based development at all?
I'm not even familiar what that means. What's trunk-based
I
development?
posted about it in Slack.
Okay, he's
Dude,
feeding
I'm
you.
sorry.
He's feeding
Oh
you a
my
line.
God.
Come on.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it.
Why do we have this show?
Also, which
I
Slack?
appreciate
Because
it.
I got kicked out of 4 of them for financial reasons.
Hey, we kicked you out of something else. John's like, is Thomas going to get an email about that?
Oh, I didn't. What did I get kicked out of now?
What was it, John? Was it Teamworks?
No, he wasn't. He was never in Teamwork.
Yeah, I wasn't in Teamworks.
I forget.
Was
what
it Jira?
was. No, we're never in
No,
Jira.
we don't do Jira. I forget
There
what it was. I'm like, hey, why is Thomas in here? Let's kick him out. Just like, God, I hope it doesn't send him an email.
Something else first.
Make sure email notifications are turned off before removing me, or else it becomes a card on our Trello board. Wait, why can't I get in our Trello board?
Wait, I was gonna say, I think it was Trello. So I'm trying. So back to trunk-based development. Trying to wrap my head around this. It's basically, I guess Facebook does this, and probably other big companies. You're committing constantly to master instead of having feature branches that persist forever. You're constantly merging back into master, and everything is done off of feature toggles within the code, whether that's through your deployment process or some other way to say, does this user have access to this feature? And I like the idea, but I'm terrified of it at the same time, and so confused, because I can understand I'm working on a feature and I can set a flag on that. And for the big project I work on now, they already have that concept built in. Users have access to specific features, but I'm constantly touching other pieces of the code, and I don't want to have 1,000 places in the code where I say, if user has this feature, this function now changes how it runs. So that confuses me. Code review confuses me, because if you're committing directly into master, that doesn't really work. One of the articles I read recently was they still do feature branches, but they're short-lived. So it's create a feature branch, do your coding, have it reviewed, have it committed via pull request.
Yeah, I kind of understand. I mean, if you're running extensive tests and you have a QA department, I could see this as being a functional way of managing larger groups of developers.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company I applied for once that did gaming in bars and nightclubs and stuff like that. You might have heard of them before. And they clearly had a QA team designed to manage their developer team, where once the developers pumped out the code they were told to pump out, QA just beat the crap out of it. It seemed like they had a bigger QA team than they had development team. So if that's how you were running it, I could see it functioning.
So we talked a little bit about this last week, right? With the constant deployments and how big of a deal constantly deploying was. And I still keep coming back, even with this trunk-based development, I still can't kind of like, there's a part of me that says, man, this seems like it's so ego-driven. Like, it's just a matter of being able to say how much you're pushing out to production every day.
So from everything I'm reading, it's not about that. It's more about you're reducing your chances of having merge conflicts, which we joke all the time about. My pull requests to sit around for months or years, literally, for this project.
Yeah.
And the number of times somebody says, oh, I'm going to review this now. Hey, there's a merge conflict. Can you fix it? And I got to go fix that merge conflict.
It's like, no shit, there's a merge conflict.
It happens all the time. So one of the beauties of it is, the chances of that are very little to happen. But you're getting the code into production.
But that's a unique scenario for you. I mean, the way I see a pull request is that's a developer saying, this is ready to go to production. There's no reason for that PR to sit there for
no way.
a week.
Yeah, but if you have multiple people working on multiple features, the chances that they're going to cross-pollinate or screw up a file and have a merge conflict, it becomes a race to who can open a pull request first and have it committed.
Well, okay.
How do you reduce that with trunk-based development? I mean, you still have that race condition where I'm working on a feature, and while I'm working on this feature, somebody else has already deployed to master a couple times.
Well, okay,
but you're limited to hours versus days or weeks or months.
And you still have to have other management techniques in play. Are you doing stand-ups? Are you doing Scrum or any of the other types of daily conversations about who's in what and what they're doing? That trunk-based development isn't just, hey, everyone throw your shit at master. It's make sure that we can all commit to master and work things out as a team as they're occurring, so that if there's a problem, we can say on the Scrum burn down or whatever, this intersection of code might cause a problem in the future, and we address it now.
That's bullshit. That's horrible. That's a horrible approach.
It's awful. I don't disagree, but for large. I mean, we saw
I just don't understand the benefit. The benefit opposed to, even if you were to say, the beginning of every day we're going to review the PRs and merge them in. I mean, that even seems like a better approach than this. I just don't. I can't process.
You do both.
I can't process what the whole committing directly to master benefits. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think that's a side effect of saying.
This is a good idea?
I think that's just a side effect of saying that features are being worked on in smaller chunks.
But we're not even talking about just features. I mean, even bug fixes. I mean, anything, any sort of code needs a moment of a review. And that's how I look at a PR. A PR is a developer saying this package of code, whether it's a feature, a major feature, a minor feature, a bug fix, an enhancement, whatever it might be, this is done. I've done all my legwork. I've done all my testing. I've had the client or I've had the business owner sign off on it. I'm finished with this. Put it into master. And it's that moment of, okay, you're done with this. Let's all take a look at it. Boom, 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 boom. All right, let's merge it in. I mean, that's not a long process. It's not like, okay, we all got to call a conference and sit around this room and dissect this code line by line. No, it's one person looking at it. No merge conflicts. Everything makes sense. Coding standards met. Maybe it runs through a CI system or something along that lines. Boom, you merge it in. I mean, it's just one additional.
That's not how I treat master at all.
What?
If I push to master, it is not production ready. If I push to master, it's ready for QA and testing amongst the higher ups.
I don't understand that. I just don't understand that.
We tag releases. So when it's released,
so you're using it ready to go.
You're using it differently, yeah.
Master is just the last place where merge conflicts occur, but it's the first place for bug testing on merge conflicts.
So when you merge the master, though, you're not actually deploying to production.
You're just not. Huh? I'm deploying to staging, and staging is tested by the QA system.
That's what I was going to say. You're using master as your staging branch, and then you're tagging a release that goes to the production. Same thing, right? I mean, you're not. There's no difference there, but when you tag something for production, how are you looking at that release?
I'm handing off culpability to somebody else who's in a different position than I am.
Okay, so you're washing your hands of it. I mean, yeah.
Correct. When it's merged into production, I breathe easy. When it's merged into staging is when I get yelled at by people above me. But when it's merged to production,
that's where you want to get yelled at, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of my point. It's like this constant release. When I hear John mention trunk-based development and this deployment to master, I'm translating that to production. Like if you're merging into master, this stuff is hitting production. It seems like
from everything I'm reading, it's ready to go into production at that moment. You have the proper flags in place to say nobody sees this. Nobody's supposed to see this feature until I flip this flag, or I flip this flag for specific people to see it.
Let me give you an example of where this would be incredibly useful. You have an API that has multiple endpoints, a JSON endpoint, a SOAP endpoint, et cetera, et cetera. You need to implement a new feature. So does somebody else. That feature has step one, implement this new endpoint type. That's step one. you don't want two people working on implementing that new endpoint type because this new technology is popular, and then both of you merging your code that does the same thing, and then both of you writing the system that's
but that's just poor management. Who does that?
Well, this is a management type.
Poor But no, I'm just saying that's like giving two developers the same ticket. Say, okay, you both work on this ticket. Whoever gets it done first, gets to merge it in. That doesn't make any sense.
No, but people do it accidentally.
Your scenario is it's accidentally. When we're talking about established workflows here, accidents are going to happen. Merge conflicts are going to happen.
But you're looking at in that case, you're looking at the API endpoint code. The API endpoint code interacts with other pieces, like, let's say, a model that other pieces of the system interact with. So you're changing a model that affects other places. We may be working on a ticket. We both have to affect that model. Right?
Yeah, you want to minimize the time that you guys have distance between you.
Right.
I disagree. I still disagree.
What else have you been obsessing over, John?
It's still fascinating to me.
You said three things.
Yeah,
we said no Bitcoin, no like Chinese schoolgirls,
bad programming. What was the other one?
So the other one,
I can't say that. No, I can't.
Processes.
I can't call things bad programming. Gosh. That'll get me kicked off Twitter.
Jesus Christ, can I just talk for 1 second? So the three things have me obsessed right now: trunk-based development, Bitcoin or the blockchain, and microservices. And
for our listeners, that wasn't a sound effect. That was the perfect opening of a Lagavulin.
That was good. So microservices, trying to get my head wrapped around how to break up a monolithic system into microservices and what microservices really are versus what some of the things we're using them as. So in a perfect world, a microservice has its own database, its own API. It can interact with other microservices, but there's no blending of that data, where with a monolithic system, it's like a free-for-all in the database. And I run into issues with that all the time right now. Excuse me. So it's just a fascinating topic and wanting to know more about it.
I agree. I don't have a lot to say about that I haven't already said. I mean, that's true. It is a fascinating topic. I think it's another management style.
It's not necessarily management. It's not management style. It's more.
I'm going to explain to you why.
It's more how do you wrap your head around breaking up your system so that other components don't clobber what you're working on. And the whole point of the microservices is to be able to deploy small chunks of code that don't break other things.
Oh yeah.
And so all the videos I've been watching are more the theory behind it, and they go into these long-winded like mathematics and like nothing PHP centric. It's how to determine how to break it up, what services talk to what languages they're talking, and it's like you're talking at such a high level. I'm trying to figure out how to break this down into how do you break up a monolithic system into these microservices? Like, what should I be looking for versus like they're just not using real world examples, and I hate examples that are not real world.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's like, yeah, they're like, oh yeah, we're going to create a microservice. This one's going to manage cars. This one's going to manage bikes. This one's going to manage.
It's not even that. What I've been watching is we have microservice A talking to microservice B, and B consumes A with the A language, and then microservice C talks to A, but A consumes it with the C language, and it's like, no, this I need real world examples, please.
Yeah, can you make it about dogs and cats?
I hate that example too.
Well, I think, I mean, it's the great educators that we rely on, like Jeffrey Way and people like that. They use better metaphors and examples in their teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes them great. And that's been one of the things I focus on when I'm trying to do talks. I try to be as practical as possible when I'm giving presentations.
Yeah, but even them, they have a tendency to skirt the real world examples as well. I mean, it's just like when you're trying to talk about or present or educate on something, you don't really want to dive into the nuances of the real world because there's all these conditions and oh yeah, typically you just do this, but in this one case we're going to do it this way because this little piece is a little ugly. But to John's point, it's like when you don't see that real world example, then these cookie cutter scenarios that they put together for these ideas and workflows, they start to fall apart. It's like, okay, I'm understanding what you're saying about microservices, and I see the little boxes you have on the screen and the little arrows pointing to the other boxes, but I have this circle here in my world, and how do I get the arrows to point to that circle? And it everything falls apart. The whole house of cards fall apart for a lot of people. So,
well, one of the things I like about Jeffrey Way and Adam Wathan are that they focus on the application that you're looking at now. Jeffrey Way talks a lot about the new feature he just built into Laracasts and how he did it. Adam Wathan has a project called Kitetail app, which he is constantly developing as a lesson, and sort of saying this is how something is done practically when you want to do it this way, and when you want to accomplish this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perhaps. All right, we are deep into this this podcast. Where are we at?
55 minutes.
Wow. Do we want to talk about any? We don't have a lot of news in here. Do we want to talk about any of this stuff? You got a few.
I think we talked about most of it.
Did we?
Yeah, the things we're missing here. We've got a couple. See, we lost John.
Oh, did you see this one? NSA. NSA actually has a GitHub account now.
Yeah,
the NSA is on GitHub. Did you see this?
I mean, they were on GitHub before, but now they're officially on GitHub.
Yeah, they have a whole little GitHub page, like the GitHub. Yeah, I forget what it's called, where you can host a site on your GitHub repo. They have that, and they have a whole bunch of repos you can now fork and contribute to, and this is kooky, man. This is really kooky.
It is, but one of the things that you look at when you see what they're actually giving out is analysis tools, data platform tools. It's not stuff that is really that useful, but it's tools that they've developed in the time of need of having terabytes and terabytes of data.
They do have SEL Linux or SE Linux on here.
That makes me trust SE Linux a lot.
So I thought that was cool. We'll have that one in the show notes.
Yeah, it's WebSocket library, log-based transaction graph engine, digest stat and copy files from one location to another in the same read pass. It's a lot of functional stuff.
So this open source monetization you already talked about?
Well,
I brushed past it.
Yeah. My favorite story of the day is Let's Encrypt is now going to offer wildcard certificates finally, starting January next year.
That's a huge change.
Not finally, not even soon. We're talking about another 6 months from now, but Yeah, it's
Still,
coming. It's finally coming.
it's one of those things lots of people have been asking for. So finally, is like, at least they're saying yes, we'll do it. For the longest time, they didn't know for sure if they would or not.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what the challenges are with that, because I mean, if you're creating your own certs, like what obstacles are they having to overcome before releasing this? It seems like it would actually be something fairly simple for them to implement. I'm a little curious as to why.
Yeah, I don't know the details of how certificates are created and know what the difference is between. I mean, I know how they work, like technically, but what it takes to create a wildcard certificate, I don't know what that entails. I don't know if you need a higher level of trust or how that works. Because you figure with the certificate chain, I don't know if they need the okay from their upstream providers or how. But I know that our client that's been using this a lot, they're saving thousands of dollars every month by using Let's Encrypt because of all the certificates they have. But they can't get past the wildcard certificate, even though I keep trying to tell them we don't have to have a wildcard certificate. Even though each user can have their own subdomain, like eric.domain.com. As soon as you say, hey, I want to claim the subdomain Eric, we could generate a Let's Encrypt certificate for that, right? So we don't technically need a or a wildcard certificate for it. But at the same time, you're talking about thousands and thousands of certificates, and they just don't want to go through that headache. Not that I think it would be one.
Yeah.
So,
Thomas, did you want to circle back around on the open source monetization topic?
I did. We've talked a lot about open source, and we've actually discussed monetizing open source in the past, but there are some new platforms out, and this is part of my whole deep dive into Ethereum. But there are actually methods now of sort of sponsoring open source development, so that with these Ethereum contracts, you can say once this feature is merged into production, then set the flag for releasing the money to the person who merged the feature in. So bounties
That's
are
interesting.
entirely possible.
I was gonna say it's like a bounty, right? I mean, it's
right.
So anybody who contributes can benefit from that.
Right.
Which they have now without the blockchain, but the blockchain puts a contract in place.
Yeah, and the blockchain is like spending money but not giving it to the person until the work is completed and you've agreed. It's a weird territory where it sort of is like an escrow. And there's a lot more to it than that. Specifically, a company called Aragon, which is creating a platform for governmentless or globally scoped investment in concepts. Stuff that it's weird. I don't know. My faith has been shaken this evening. I don't know if I can promote this a whole lot without further research, but it's interesting. I mean, one of this company's main interests is being able to commoditize open source for the people developing it, and I think that's a great goal to have.
Interesting. That is interesting. That is a cool little hook to that whole process.
Eric, do you want to talk about that one you shared with me earlier today? I mean, forget the name of it at this point, but it was very interesting.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It was Remme, REMME.
Remme. Mm-hmm.
So they basically want to take away passwords from the process and basically give every device their own basically token or address or their own SSL certificate.
Let me give credit where credit is due. Friend of the show, Eduardo, sent me that link along with another link I haven't sent you yet, John. But yes, Eduardo, thank you very much for that link. Every now and then people contribute. And if you want to contribute a link to the show, Thomas does manage a Reddit for PHP Ugly. You can always add links there as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah. This Remy thing looks super, super cool. It's really interesting. We'll post this in the show notes as well, and I'll send it to you as well as Thomas, because I know you never read the show notes nor listen to the actual show,
nor look at Reddit since it's posted there.
But yeah, it's so. I mean, did you wrap your head around what they're proposing here, John? As far as like everything having essentially everything having an SSL cert.
Yeah, the confusion is what we would have to do on our end. So we're basically giving access to our systems now for a device. So if you have multiple devices, we have to somehow figure out that you're the same person and give access to those devices to our service or whatever that is. So basically, each device gets its own SSL certificate managed by the blockchain, stored on the blockchain, so it's not going to be kept by anybody else. And then you would be using that to access different sites and services.
You're kind of describing DRM.
DRM?
Really?
Yeah. That's the thing, is that for me right now, the gulf in the technology, the place where it is weakest, is at the hardware layer. The Bitcoin people, the Litecoin people, Ethereum people, everyone is operating on sort of these functions of trust, establishing trust and how trust is maintained. Acknowledging things like the 51% attack or things like the DAO collapse. These are all trust-based conversations. There isn't an initiative that I know of right now that is attempting to move trust into the physical sector, tying fingerprints or retinal scans to permanent identification, things that are more and more difficult to compromise. Because as somebody who's been involved in the piracy community for 20 years, I can tell you software solutions fundamentally will not work on identity systems. They just won't, ever. The most complicated and expensive one right now is called Denuvo, and Denuvo got defeated and then rewritten and then defeated again and then rewritten and then defeated so badly that it's functionally going to bankrupt the company. The most recent attack on the Denuvo system is crushingly bad, and it is the most advanced version of software protection in the world as far as commercial software. So when people start having a trust in hardware implementations binding to software implementations, that's when you'll see real change being made or real progress being made. But at this point, it doesn't exist. My laptop has a fingerprint reader, which is essentially useless because it binds to software that I don't know or trust, which accesses an API that I don't know or trust, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then it sends my fingerprint to the endpoint. There's too many men in the middle. And why would I use that?
But I think that's what this is trying to address, it's trying to address the issue of trust by tying your piece of hardware via the blockchain.
Yeah, but it's asking my hardware what my hardware is. It's asking my software what my hardware is. As long as you're asking my software,
it's not even hardware. It's just you're getting an SSL certificate, and I think they're trying to remove the complexity of understanding public and private keys at that point. My assumption is, excuse me, you get a certificate, and they can prove the trust via the blockchain.
They can prove the trust based off of a chosen number of vectors, but those vectors are all weak. Microsoft attempted to do this. Apple is still currently doing this. You cannot. Wow, John pressed mute on his mic and crashed his whole system. Oh, he is dying. He's dying on camera in front of us. I think we can't publish this to YouTube. Well, now your mic's muted. So the thing is, Apple currently does this with their operating system. You cannot install Apple OS on non-Apple hardware. And if it weren't for the thriving community of people who do so, you'd think they'd succeeded. But they have not in the slightest bit succeeded. And they've been doing this for 15 years, ever since OS X was released. Denuvo, which is multi-point authentication using your hardware, has been defeated easily. It took weeks to defeat it globally. Software solutions fundamentally aren't going to work. You know, it's too easy.
Doom and gloom.
It's too easy to circumvent. I know. Well, hey, sorry. I was gonna try and defend myself, but decided against it.
So we're running a little long. We probably need to wrap this up. I'm a couple scotches into it, so I'm caring less and less about any of this conversation. I do want to mention that I have a couple of links that I'll add to the show notes. Really good links. One that has a bunch of Twitter handles for really influential people in the PHP community. So if you're a PHP developer, are you looking to getting into PHP? These are a lot of the Twitter handles to follow. Another one is a list of really prominent podcasts to listen to within the PHP world and programming world. Oddly enough, we are not mentioned on either list. So,
Excellent.
Good to know
so
that
quality is there.
Yeah. Good to know we're pretty much wasting our time and not influencing absolutely nobody during that period.
Wait for next week when we talk about the blockchain lists. We'll be on that for sure, right?
Influential blockchain discussers. That will be us. All right, that's it. Do we want to? We have one more story.
You got the extra qualifier on there. Blockchain influencers that talk about PHP.
There you go.
Got to get enough qualifications in there to make it
on a podcast Thursday night. I think we should have that one locked down.
Released on Sundays.
Let's talk about this last one. What's this last one? Who is this? Thomas, Jesus Christ, man, you've had enough of this show. What is this? New NASDAQ data.
This was the first thing I added this week before I had gone fully down the spiral. But we were discussing last week how Ethereum had forked off because of bad data or perceived bad data, and so I saw this tweet this week from our dear leader Rasmus Lerdorf, which was a notification from NASDAQ that test data had leaked onto the system, and that everyone who propagated the system was requested to remove the test data and revert to July 3rd, 2017 at 5:16 p.m.
See, that's what happens when you trunk-based develop.
Exactly. Even the biggest blockchain can be forked, as they did.
All right, guys. Anything else? Do we want to talk about anything else? We hardly talked about it. Next week, hardcore PHP guys. Seriously, I don't want to see any non-PHP articles on the Trello board. All PHP.
All about the chunk-based development. That was PHP related.
That was management.
PHP related.
Next week, I'll talk about my PHP implementation of the Ethereum blockchain wallet.
I'm okay with that. That would be all right. I'm calling this one. This has been episode 68 of PHP Ugly. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Ragnar.
Keep it
Keep
ugly.
it ugly.
Keep it ugly. Thomas, you just
I am
came
not-
that one up.
I'm not syncing that one up. I sync up every single other one of them. I'm not syncing that one up.
What? Why not?
Because you didn't understand what keep it ugly? It was a question.
The question.
We stated
I-
keep it ugly.
You didn't really get John's name. Like John kind of talked over underneath you, and I was like,
Right.
I was
Same
waiting
thing
for him
happened
to
last
say
week.
his-
I just cut the
Because
track
I-
and relayed them.
I knew he could do that, so it was okay. We've talked
Yeah.
about it plenty of times.
I did that literally
Whatever.
last week.